you ready to go, Brianna? Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lakewood City Council regular meeting for Monday, August 1st, 2022. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Anderson. Here. Bell has been excused. Councilmember Boki.
Here.
Councilmember Brandstetter. Here. Councilmember Farmer is joining us virtually.
Here.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Moss. Here. And Mayor Whalen.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Please stand and join me in a brief moment of silence for our men and women serving abroad as well as here in the United States, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, again, thank you for joining us tonight and welcome to the slightly cooler temperatures outside. We worked hard to bring down the average temperature from 95 to something closer to mid 80s. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more enjoyable. Our first section of tonight's agenda includes proclamations and presentations. We have two. The first is a proclamation declaring August 2nd, 2022 as National Night Out, followed by a proclamation declaring August 7, 2022 through August 13, 2022 as Farmers Market Week. For the first, I'll ask Assistant Chief Allwine to join me for the proclamation declaring August 2nd as National Night Out. Well, I'm pleased to present this proclamation tonight on behalf of the council. This is a wonderful opportunity for neighbors to get together throughout the city to talk about issues of importance to them, not just about public safety, but just about their neighborhood and getting to know one another. So we enjoy putting this on in conjunction with our first responders, both our police department and the folks at West Pierce. Whereas on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, residents of the city of Lakewood will have an opportunity to get together in their neighborhoods to participate in the 38th annual National Night Out Against Crime. And whereas the National Night Out provides an exceptional opportunity for the city of Lakewood to join forces with thousands of other communities and millions of others around the world in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the residents of Lakewood play a vital role in assisting the Lakewood Police Department through joint crime and drug prevention efforts here in the city. And whereas it's essential that all residents of Lakewood be made aware of the importance of community policing partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation, and the impacts that their own participation can have on reducing crime, drugs, and violence in Lakewood. And whereas National Night Out enhances the relationship between neighbors and law enforcement while bringing back a true sense of community. Now, therefore, the Lakewood City Council hereby proclaims August 2nd, 2022 as National Night Out Against Crime here in the city of Lakewood, and we urge all residents to join us in supporting and participating in one of the various events throughout this community. Proclaim this first day of August 2022, Jason Whalen, Mayor. Chief, thanks for coming tonight. Yep. Hand that to you and give you a chance to say a few words about the event.
Thank you. Surprisingly, the speech I prepared was exactly this, so it really takes away from what I was going to say, but I will say this. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for your ongoing support of this really important event. And like the mayor said in here, this is such a great opportunity for us to get out and to continue to build on existing relationships and hopefully start creating new ones that are vital to the ongoing success of the police department and the city. So thank you very much.
We'll see you out there on the trail.
Thank you.
I know there are several communities out there that are going to be enjoying the evening together, and feel free hopefully to join in. The next proclamation declaring the week of August 7th rather, as Farmers Market Week. We'll have Sally Martinez, our recreational coordinator, approach the podium with Councilmember Don Anderson to receive the proclamation.
Well, I don't know if this proclamation goes far enough to recognize Sally Martinez's contribution to this. Our farmers market has turned from a small initial venture out here in the parking lot to a weekly festival in Fort Steilacoom Park. But with that, I'd like to acknowledge farmers markets in general. Whereas farmers markets are engines of economy and recovery and rebuilding, providing families with access to healthy foods and agricultural products directly from Washington farmers and small businesses. And whereas Washington has some 160 farmers markets in over 90 cities and towns around the state that attract over 4 million shoppers annually, and each creates a special place of beloved community connection. And whereas farmers markets serve as significant outlets for new businesses and family farms with lean budgets to hone their skills, develop their products, grow a loyal shopper base, and build experience in order to be successful. And whereas farmers markets support the sustainability of family farms and the revitalization of rural communities and preserve farmland and open space, adding to our quality of life. And whereas farmers markets also support artisans, prepared food businesses, and other vendors, as well as increasing sales of neighboring businesses. And whereas farmers markets are a key source of fresh, nutritious food for everyone, and whereas farmers markets are managed by dedicated community leaders who are driven to shared values to support local farmers, feed their neighbors, and create a healthy and vibrant community. And whereas farmers markets contribute to the economic and social fabric of their communities, creating a positive community experience and providing education and connection to residents about their food and where it comes from. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lakewood City Council hereby proclaim August 7th through 13th, 2022 as Farmers Market Week in the city of Lakewood, and encourages residents to visit the Lakewood Farmers Markets on Tuesday from August 2nd through August 30th from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Fort Steilacoom Park. Proclaim this first day of August 2022, Jason Whalen, Mayor. And did I say food trucks? Thank you, Sally. Would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and council members for being so incredibly supportive of the farmers market, not only in word and through the proclamation, but by being out there. I see you out there shopping and meeting and greeting and supporting the local shoppers. I do have a very brief PowerPoint just to give an update for the first 2 months of the market.
And then when you're done, we'll capture a photograph, Ms. Martinez, down here so we can have something posted out there at the market.
Okay, so we started in June this year, and so we've officially completed 2 months of the market. And I just wanted to give you a very brief update of where we are. Again, we had 2 key sponsors, Virginia Mason and WSECU, which enable us to buy our swag bags and magnets and all those marketing materials that keep people in the habit of coming and remembering that it's on Tuesdays from 2 to 7 p.m. And there's so many new things. I just wanted to briefly go over what is new. It seems like every year something does change. When COVID hit, we moved from City Hall to the Fort Steilacoom Park. We were so fortunate to have that space. Vendors had to be 10 feet apart. Many farmers markets at that point had to shut down. And we did just the opposite. We expanded. And so it was a big decision to move it again within the park. And we went ahead and we did that. We actually changed the date and time. We went from Friday to Tuesdays. We did that because as the festivals picked up, I found out that my vendors wanted to be at the 3-day festivals and I couldn't compete. So I surveyed them all. They thought Tuesday was a great day. It also put us in the front of the line before DuPont and Steilacoom and JBLM markets. So we were first on the list for people to come. We had more vendor space, so we've been able to increase the number of vendors, and especially the food trucks. They have a big footprint. They can't be on the grass, and we were able to expand our food vendors. Let's see, a big thing was traffic. We needed to devote about 4 people at all times to managing traffic and making sure no cars came through, just in terms of safety and pedestrians crossing through traffic. Now that it's on the lawn by the playground, we don't have to devote those resources, and we don't have to worry about any acts of terrorism in that respect. It is close to the playground, it's close to the pavilion. We went ahead and changed the concert series to be on the same night, though there's overlap by a half an hour. People can come, they can get their food from food trucks and go sit and listen to the music. And there's plenty of free parking. There's a lot more seating and shade. That was a high priority. I know when people stay longer, they buy more, and they do that. I get reports from vendors, someone will come by, then they'll go and eat, and then they'll buy more, and it works out very well. So what do the numbers look like? That's what it comes down to. These are incubators, like it said here in this proclamation, small businesses oftentimes growing and then going to bigger markets, established markets. And so on opening day, it was almost $60,000. Opening day the year before was in the 40,000. So there was a big jump there. And the year before that, when it was at City Hall, I think our big opening day was around 25,000. So you've just seen this increase after increase after increase. And then for our market sales, in June, it was over $200,000, a big increase from last year. In July, we're at 176. It's actually less than July last year. We had a 96-degree day last week, and a big reason for moving to the grass was so that we didn't have to close the market down. I didn't ever want to do that again, because it is a livelihood for our berry farmers and our farmers. And I was so pleased we're one of the few markets that didn't shut down, and people did come out, but our sales were less than half of what they normally are. A lot of vendors didn't come out, but people did come. The vendors that came, and it was important to them. Had that day been an average day, we would be pretty much the same as last year. So what does it look like? We have 80 vendors instead of 60. And just remember, every market day is different. We have people that cancel for different reasons. The weather makes a significant impact, as does other events that are big, for instance, the Puyallup Fair. But we do have 17 food trucks as opposed to 9 last year, and we just couldn't add any more. And so the big question was, do I have too many food trucks? Because if you do that, they don't come back. If they don't do well, they don't come back. So it's a very tricky balance. But what I am finding, at least at this market, is the more food you have, the more people come. They love the food, and it's worked out very, very well. This gives you a nice visual. I was very worried about the linear landscape of this new location. That was my biggest hesitancy. I love a square or a circle. But what it has turned out to be is more like a promenade that people go down. They do go from start to finish. We're strategic about putting food trucks at one end and farmers at the other. And it's worked really well. Huge this year, new thanks to Nikki York. My colleague, she implemented SNAP. And right now we have the people have spent $16,000 in SNAP. So this is going directly to our vendors, who are then reimbursed. And it's allowing people who are low income to buy healthy food, healthy, fresh food. It's such a wonderful thing. And so you're all familiar with what you find at the market: food, flowers, food processors, crafters, food trucks, and live music. Those things are always consistent. And these are just a few pictures that are indicative of those wonderful things. And the beautiful cement lot we have for our food trucks, so they don't damage the field. Our colorful crafters, our activities for children, animals. I have a pig picture, I have a bunny picture. I couldn't put them all, but the animals are big. And here's a little piece of live music. How to get that to play? Oh, okay. I'm going to skip those. We have 31 women-owned businesses, 8 veteran-owned businesses, 22 minority-owned businesses. This is significant. And there's just a few pictures to show. We know that our shoppers are between the age of 31 and 60, and mostly female. We know that 10% of the shoppers are from out of state. This helps me with my lodging tax grants. This is just of a survey of about 250 people. So if you extrapolate out, you have 4,000 people at a market. That's really significant. I think people bring their out of town guests. And almost 40% of the people that responded to the survey come weekly, and 18% said it was their first time. I'm just going to keep going here. So the economic impact, I just want to quickly speak to this because it was mentioned in the proclamation that it is, and it makes a significant economic impact. And we know that 64% of those who come to the market will go to other places in the community, in our community, and spend anywhere from $5 to $45. And, you never know what famous people you run into at the market. So that's to keep you coming. Thanks, everyone, for your support.
And Sally, we're going to go ahead and take a little photo down here again in honor of not just you and the department's fine work, but of our vendors and all the folks who frequent the market. Well, thank you again. Good job on the farmers market. Fabulous feedback. It's really a fun thing to attend. Next, we have our Clover Park School District report. And for this, we have our board member, Paul Wegeman. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Whalen and council members. I'm happy to give a report on what's happening at Clover Park School District. As you know, this Friday will be the end of summer school, so we're kind of giving you a report after it's over. But let me just tell you a little bit about what's happened at summer school. Pre-K through 5th grade, we had about 1,181 students. 6th through 12th grade, we had 611 students, and high school credit retrieval, 420 students. The kind of things that we're doing in the elementary, early literacy and mathematic enrichment for K-2 students to help build confidence for the start of next school year. Project-based learning with an emphasis on science and social studies, and science-based STEM courses for grades 1 through 5. At the middle school level, project-based learning with emphasis on science and social studies and science-based STEM courses. Additionally, getting ready for middle school algebra is offered for students who are trying to build their mathematical skills for algebra. At the high school level, independent study groups through Grad Alliance online program, which allows students to earn credits at their own pace. Any core class they had previously taken are available for students. Additionally, students are engaging in enrichment courses that include leadership, arts, and fitness classes. Full day kindergarten will be offered in every one of our elementary schools this year. Kindergarten or school starts August 31st. However, kindergarten won't start until August 6th. So a little bit behind the others. If you're interested in providing supplies to students, we have a standardized list for all the schools on our website. So you can look at that and see the things to buy. You know, at times there's so many things given out, and used to go to bus stops. I used to see bunches of pencils. So sometimes we get too many of those things. So I think we've refined that so it's a better program. So it helps those that need help, and we're not wasting resources. Caring for Kids Ready to Learn Fair was August 13th. As you know, everyone here knows that Caring for Kids just does a lot of wonderful things for our students in our community. And, Diane Formosa and her team, it's just an amazing thing. This is a free event, provides Clover Park students who qualify for free and reduced price meals at school with school supplies, hygiene products, clothing, and haircuts. We value our partnership with Caring for Kids and their support for our community's children. Warrior and Lancer ninth grade transition programs will be going this month. Clover Park and Lakes High School will offer the Warrior and Lancer Academies, respective for incoming ninth graders. So it's always a big transition to move from middle school into the high school. And so these transition programs I think, are well worth the time and effort to try and bridge some of that gap as people move on. Middle school and Harrison Prep sixth grade transition program. All district middle schools will host a 2-day transition program for incoming sixth graders. The transition program is intended to welcome and prepare students for middle school by helping them develop skills needed to be successful in high school and middle school. Okay. We enjoyed participating with the community, our community in Summerfest this year. Let's see, how many people do we have? We had over 50 of our staff out there helping, and they had a booth and some of those things to try and make a difference. So we were part of the team there, so that was good. Just a reminder, when summer school is on, the traffic zones are still, you can get a ticket for speeding in a school zone. So just remember that. We just have a bunch of administrative changes this year. Let's see how many we got here too. Probably about 15 administrators are changing, from principals to assistant principals. Clover Park principal has moved to an administrative job, so we have a new principal there plus 2 assistant principals. And so, a key to education from my perspective is having good leadership. And so they're working on that. So we have like I said, quite a few doing that. Again, on our website and our Facebook pages, if you get a chance to look at that, please click the like button. Let's see. And, as our board goals, I think the key things there is student growth and achievement. We like to engage our parents. When parents are involved, the students do better. We want to make sure we have good communication with our stakeholders. We really support a supportive learning environment for our students. And there's lots of people in our community that are doing things to help that. And we have people at work in the district trying to get more parents involved and community members involved in helping our students. Again, staff retention is always an issue. I think our whole nation is dealing with employment issues, and we in the education business have got the same issues, so we're working hard on that. And then, trying to control our budget. As we spend $250 million of our dollars. 52% of our state budget goes to education, so there's a lot of money being spent in this, helping our students. And as our Constitution is very clear, that our paramount responsibility is to make sure our children get a basic education. So that's what we're working towards. So I'll stand for any questions if there are any.
Well, thank you very much, Director Wegeman. Do we have any questions from the council? Thanks for the great report.
Thank you. Have a good
Appreciate
day.
it. Yep, we'll see you out there. This next section of our meeting tonight is the public comment period, and all public comments are accepted by mail, email, or by live, virtual, or in-person comment. Comments may be sent in writing in advance by mail or email to Ms. Schumacher, our city clerk, at 6000 Main Street Southwest here in Lakewood, or via her email address, bschumacher@cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to an hour before the meeting have been provided to the city council electronically through the clerk, and the clerk will now read the names of those who have submitted comments in advance.
Mayor, we received comments in advance from Linda Briner, Casey Crook, James Dunlop, Roxy Giddings, Marianne Mayer Kirsten, Barbara Lang, and Rick Wilkerson.
Thank you very much. Many of those I have read myself before this evening. You're not obligated to repeat your testimony that you provided by way of public comment, but you're certainly welcome to do so. Members of the audience may comment on items related to any matter related to city business under this public comment period. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Virtual comments may be made as well by participating through the live public comment capability provided by the city. On the screen are the telephone numbers, dial-in numbers, and ID meeting numbers available. Please press *9 to raise your hand so we can call on you virtually. What we try to do is call on in alternate meetings, either the folks who have signed in person, and we go to those folks on Zoom and vice versa. Tonight, we will call first on those who are in person who have signed in to speak. I have the listing here. I have Jenny Rawlings, but I know she needs a little time to get here. I don't see her in the audience yet. So the next person is Casey Crook. Yes. Welcome. You're absolutely welcome to. Just state your name and residence address here, and that way we'll make a record. Yes, ma'am. Right up to the podium. We welcome first timers. Thank you for coming.
My name is Casey Crook and I'm born and raised in Lakewood, Washington. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, friends of Lakewood Library. My name is Casey. I am a lifelong patron of our Lakewood Library. Thank you for hearing my voice and for considering my words. I am not that great at speaking, but I owe it to our Lakewood Library to try. I owe a lot to our Lakewood Library. I love and cherish everything about our Lakewood Library, especially the land it lives on. The corner of our neighborhood that our Lakewood Library calls its home is an exceptionally beautiful and special space. It is not big. It is not fancy. It is not flashy. It is not brand new. It is none of these things. It is home. It is modest and distinguished. It is tranquil and down to earth. Our Lakewood Library has a character which cannot be replaced, only added to by good and honest intentions of its loyal neighbors and protectors. We loyal neighbors of Lakewood Library are now its protectors. Our Lakewood Library has a spirit. It is a collective spirit of all hearts and minds and hands to offer love, solutions, and support. We are proud citizens of Lakewood, Washington, our home. We are proud patrons of Lakewood Library, our home. Home is shared and sacred ground. The land our Lakewood Library lives on is shared and sacred ground, deserving of reverence and respect. Please help us to protect the irreplaceable and sacred grounds of Lakewood Library and Lakewood, Washington, our home. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Next on the sign-in sheet, Christina Minetti.
Christina Minetti, Lakewood, and Casey, I couldn't say it as well as you did. So first, I'd like to comment on the temperature of this room during the last meeting. I think you probably noticed that it was really, really cold. It was bone-chillingly cold. I think you fixed it, but even though it wasn't so terribly hot that day at all, we froze in here and people were even going to the bathroom to warm up. And I mean, I hope that that's not the case everywhere in the building, but you know, I hope you take into account eco considerations and taxpayer money and stuff. I hope that doesn't happen again. Mayor Whalen had one of his coffee house events on Thursday. It was about roadworks in Lakewood, and I didn't go to it. But the public was invited for 1 hour to hear someone talk about this problem or this issue and answer questions. I'd like to suggest that although the problem of often ill-conceived, annoying, and expensive roadworks is one that vexes many, if not most, of Lakewood's residents, it would be good to have a town hall style meeting where people could actually ask questions about topics that matter to them most and not have it dictated to the audience. Where they could get answers. Was there a town hall with questions and answers, for example, about PFAS contamination from McCord, for example? That seems like something really people should know about, but I don't think that they do. While Mayor Whalen's format is better than former Mayor Anderson's early morning format with his coffees, it's not enough. A true town hall type meeting would be completely different than the public comment period at city council meetings, where the experience of commenting is, as the Polish saying goes, like rzucanie grochem o ścianę, throwing peas on a wall. If you can't imagine what that's like, I'll tell you. If you throw dried split peas on the wall, what happens? They just fall off, right? Nothing happens. Like there's no reaction. It's like you didn't do anything, right? So of course, people might counter that, oh, but they have listened to us. Just look at the ad hoc tree committee. They even spent a great chunk of taxpayer money, $60,000 on it. But could it be just all pretense? On the one hand, they claim to want to do something about the virtually meaningless tree protection code. And on the other, they tell their public works department to cut down 12 large Gary oaks for that sidewalk I talked about last time, irreplaceable Gary oaks, for a sidewalk that nobody is going to use. They could have made it on the other side of the road. They profess in their most important documents that their intention is to protect Lakewood's environment for posterity, yet they encourage the warehouse developers to destroy entire neighborhoods and the environment, including critical areas comprised of Gary oaks, wetlands, and floodplains. I ask again that you make good on your words. Make sure that all the departments of City Hall, the police, and all the utilities know your will and intentions in terms of the trees and the environment. How will we be able to protect the trees and the environment and the air and the water and the wetlands and everything we have here if one hand doesn't know what the other's doing? Thank you.
Next is Mr. James Dunlop.
My name is James Dunlop, and I'm a Lakewood resident. I've already given you quite a lengthy written comment, so everything is pretty much in there. Just a few points that I'd like to say out loud here. I did listen to your study session, and I listened to the comments you made. I hope you don't regard that as being eavesdropping, but I suppose it's publicly available. So I did want to make some remarks about that. I think it's great that you were discussing de-annexation and that you were taking it seriously. At the same time, you didn't seem enthusiastic about it. You felt as if you had to do it. So, I mean, a bit more enthusiasm might have been a good idea because I think there is an opportunity there. You know, Lakewood having a new library system potentially could be, could be something exciting. It may be, we may be approaching a fork in the road, particularly if the old Tensler building closes. Now, that is not what we want, but it seems to me to be quite clear that the Pierce County Library System have made up their mind that they want to close it. So the only reason really to be part of the Pierce County Library System is to keep the Wildair property open. If you're going to close the Wildair property, well, what's the point? It's a new beginning. Lakewood might as well sort out its own library system. I was slightly concerned by Councilmember Anderson's comment that he made. He said, I'd like to make an informed decision when I vote no. When? I mean, he doesn't know what he's going to hear. So I'm assuming he means if he votes no. And then there's a question about what are you voting no to? Because there are two ways of going through with de-annexation. RCW 2712-380 talks about the City Council voting for a proposal which is put to the electors of Lakewood. That's one approach, which is the easiest approach. Alternatively, you can have a system whereby both the City Council and the Board of Trustees of the Pierce County Library System both agree to de-annexation. So that's another approach. So to conclude, I think there's an opportunity here, and I think it is an opportunity for the City Council to show leadership. There's a lot more that I've said in my written comment. So I would ask you to vote for de-annexation and perhaps to have a proposal at the end of next year. Thank you.
Next is Loretta Barker. Hi. Welcome.
I'm here on behalf of myself and some of the other residents in my apartment complex. I've been living at the Village Apartments for 5 years, September. Well, it'll be 6 years in September. And in that expanse of 5 years, my rent has been raised 3 times. The first time it didn't hurt so bad because it was before COVID and it only went up $35. I was able to handle that. The second time it jumped during COVID from one number, $165 more. And that was 1 year ago. And now I have a notice that says my rent is going to go up again, another $100, $75, excuse me. And I work full time, but just like anyone else, I'm just coming through COVID as well. I have adult children that have children. And during COVID, I reached out to help my family so that my grandchildren wouldn't be homeless. I don't mind being homeless myself if that's what it takes for me to survive, but I won't see my grandchildren out in the world. And so I was doing what I could to help them and I fell behind, but I made a payment plan and I keep, trying to get it all caught up. But as soon as I get close to getting it caught up, my rent goes up again, and so that puts me back again. I would like for you to consider putting some kind of they're not doing anything to improve the condition of our apartments. No one has been in there to clean my carpeting. No one has made any repairs in the apartment. I have a rather large clothing supplement. And so all my clothes fell down to the ground one day in the middle of the night because the bar in there broke. The water has been shut off multiple times since I've been living there. Several times the water gets shut off. We don't have dishwashers on our side of the facility, but on the other side, they have dishwashers, hardwood floors, all kinds of improvements. And they haven't done anything for us, but our rent is going up higher than theirs. So I would appreciate if you could, look to see if there's something you could do to help us out because we can't afford to move right now because of the increases everywhere else, as well as needing first, last, and all of that. I'm not asking you to do anything for me. I'm asking you to help me do it for myself. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ginny Rawlings.
I apologize to you all. I had conflicting social requirements this evening, so thank you for letting me speak a little later. As I was appointed by this organization to the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Lakewood Library, I feel like I'm under an obligation to let you know how the committee has functioned so far. The first meeting was scheduled for the 14th of June, but was canceled that morning. It was rescheduled for the 30th of June, and the agenda was extended from 1.5 to 2 hours, which was a plus. Our next meeting will be August 12th from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. The plan had been to have monthly meetings in July, August, September, and a final review meeting in October, but we're already a month behind that schedule. After checking this past week with Mary Getchell, who is the Pierce County Library System Communications Director, I can report that the Pierce County Library System is, quote, working earnestly on one location, end quote, in the Lakewood area, and hopes to have temporary space open for services in what she described as early 2023, which means no sooner than January or February of 2023. The Pierce County Library System did meet in executive session this past Friday afternoon to authorize negotiations for that one space that they are looking at. But authorizing negotiations is where they're at. In the meantime, 58,000 citizens of Lakewood have been deprived of any library services for and will be for 6 months or longer, while the Pierce County Library System continues to collect our property tax income. 8 weeks ago, we were told at the June 6th town meeting that Wi-Fi would be available to Lakewood citizens in the Tensler parking lot, but no notice of this fact was ever posted, just a sign that says Wi-Fi, and even that is gone. Nothing that says what that means or what the instructions were to make that available to citizens in the area. Summer reading programs were promised, but there has been no information about how to access those in the Lakewood area. It seems to me that communication with our area residents has been woefully absent, and I feel like we've been shortchanged and trivialized. I will gladly continually serve on this committee, but I'm not sure where we're getting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for letting us know. I appreciate that update. There are two others who have signed in to speak tonight, and it looks like Gwen Harris and then Oneida Arnold. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. I'm with the same lady that was talking about the rent.
Just need your name and address for the
Oh,
record.
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. My name is Gwendolyn Harris, and I live in the Village Apartments. And my thing is that during the COVID, we each got paid the rent. Everybody paid the rent. But right after COVID, it went up from $100 to $300, depending on who the person was. And then now, this poor man back here, he lost his wife during the COVID, and he does not make enough to make the rent now. And so he's fighting just to have a home. And we don't want him out in the streets, living in his car like all the other people across our streets. So we're here today to ask you to help us, because this is ridiculous. We can't, pretty soon I'm gonna be out and I'm battling stage 4 cancer. So I just wanted you guys to know that we are struggling over there at the Village Apartments, okay? Thank you for hearing me. Have a good day.
Thank you. Oneida Arnold.
Hello, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. My name is Oneida Arnold. I'm not really a resident of Lakewood, although I did teach 10 years in the Clover Park School District. I got called in by our former testifier, and I go where I'm called for need to help. May I use your name, Lyle? Lyle, fill out, to help his situation. What I did was try to help him fill out a Pierce County rental assistance form. I'm sure that you are all familiar with it. It took us quite a long time to do it, because first you have to have internet connectivity. You have to have a smartphone or a computer, and which Lyle did not have, he does now. We still could not fill it out. I'm just giving you a little, before I get into what's happening with rent. We still could not fill it out. We called 211. It was the page before the last page that we could not make. It would not let us advance forward. And it was Danielle, I want to use her name, who really got us through the finish line. And the finish line is today, because they're no longer taking applications. So anyway, I got called in by Gwen, and Gwen is a former family member. I taught her granddaughter in first grade at McCarver Elementary. And I follow my families. Anyway, we have a situation right now with unhoused people that is extremely challenging. We're not housing anybody. Now we are going to be pushing people out, and they will be pushed out in high numbers because of the rent increases. The moratorium went off a year ago, and the increases, they hit them right away. I have a friend who I told that I was coming down to speak before the council here in Lakewood. And I know that her rent had gone up. She is on a fixed income too. She does do the teacher relief, I'll say, in the middle of the day. That is duty time. Anyway, but she texted me back, and once again, her rent is going up $150. That's $300 in this year, a year plus a little bit. Surely there's something that we can do to support. I know we don't have rent control in the state, but surely there's something that we can do. Our big situation a few years ago, pre-COVID, was the Tiki apartments that you all may know about. Some of the Tiki tenants there actually had to relocate here to Lakewood. But anything that you can do to support people who are being pushed out of their apartments, they can't afford that rent. And you know, they're upgrading. That's what I heard you say. They're upgrading. These are efficiencies. They're little places. They have a bathroom. They don't have a separate kitchen. The kitchen is right there against the wall. They're efficiencies. They're small. They're suitable for low income. They're not suitable for high income. But unless we want more people unhoused, which is a much bigger problem, let's try to keep our people housed now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That is the last individual who has signed in to address the council during public comment on the sign-in sheet. It doesn't preclude you from addressing the council during the public comment period, but that's the last individual who has signed in. If there are any others who wish to address the council who are here in the chamber, feel free to step up to the podium. And David Buer, who is our Assistant City Manager for Community Development, is over here, and he is a wealth of information on the rental housing program and the resources that may be available. So those of you who have some interest, Mr. Buer appears interested in addressing and providing information. So thank you for helping, Mr. Buer. And yes, ma'am, welcome.
My name is Jasmine Smith, and I would like to address the City Council. I came to talk about the Gary Oak trees. The Gary Oak trees that are just so important to our ecosystem, and they focus on conservation efforts, and they provide the closed canopy for our communities. And I think this past week has shown us how hot it can be. We can be on fire, but we need these trees to provide the relief and to help us with the air pollution, to help with the wildlife. I have pictures. Miss Brianna, Miss Shoemaker, maybe we could pass this to the City Council. You know, and these are just a couple of pictures that I took of the deer grazing in our yards because they no longer have a habitat because we're cutting down all the trees. For the love of money, we're not caring for our wildlife and our forests. And I would also like to talk about the library, the closing of the library. Thank you, Ms. Rollins, for your update. That kind of showed that it let us hear your perspective that things are not moving along. It's just spending money just to have meetings. But it appears that the Lakewood Library System has their own agenda to close the library permanently. And which kind of leads me to think, I love Tinsler Library. I love the Lakewood Library. I've grown up here. And it's such a important, well, every community needs a library. And I think even the people who are here about their rent assistance, or maybe they need a cap on the rent in Lakewood, you know, it's just absurd that it can go up $300 in a matter of months. And it just shows equity issues that perhaps the library could have helped with the computers for help the people do their applications. But they weren't able to do that, you know, in an emergency when it comes to housing. And there went my time. So justice for Saeed Joaquin.
That is the last individual who has signed up and or has elected to approach the podium to provide comment this evening. We now can turn to those who are interested in sharing virtually, and we have a few. Mr. Haugen appears to have his hand raised, and we'll start with Mr. Haugen and go down to Addo Equitas and the next individual. I can't fully see the name there. Mr. Haugen.
Yeah, Dennis Haugen here from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Left Lakewood in 2020. Well, thanks to Biden's rescue package. Now we have to try to rescue ourselves from the inflation that it's caused, up to 10, 12, 13% even on food. But as I listened to that last meeting, it went on for an hour and a half about all the things you're doing with the rescue package. Well, the only thing I could see there is you're spending money that the government didn't have. You're building bureaucracies to do more to encourage homeless. Now you've got illegal immigration coming in, and that adds to demand on the market. You may not see foreigners in Lakewood, but it can drive people out of Seattle. They may come here at any. You're a metropolitan market, so any illegal immigration that comes in here is affecting the market. And then, of course, Seattle continues to get a bad reputation. What they did 2 years ago with Jenny Durkin, allowing the riots to go on without calling the National Guard, it caused a couple of boys to get killed. Of course, there's a lawsuit there. There's all kinds of other lawsuits now that have to go to pay for the mistakes that were made during the riots. So it's coming to a situation. I think it's out of control for you. I think that now the best thing you can do is just try to protect yourself, because they're coming into the country by the thousands. And of course, there's the gotaways and the ones that turn themselves in, and the others are bringing in fentanyl, very deadly stuff. If you could you can even breathe just the dust from it and be overcome by it. Police officers get overcome just by grabbing a package and it's not packaged properly. But in a way, it gets back to math. Basically, you're not teaching math, reading, writing, and arithmetic. So you have a lot of people out there that can't think and can't anticipate. Otherwise, they would have fired some of those state representatives. They would have fired the governor in 2020, but you didn't. And of course, the president needs to be fired, but you got to wait a long time for that. And this guy makes a mistake every day. He's totally incompetent. So it's going to be a rough ride for you for the next 2 years, because it's not going to stop. I mean, he doesn't know how to stop it. He doesn't have the will to stop it. And many of you don't have the will to even vote for the right person Thank you.
Next is Addo Equitas.
My name's Addo Equitas. I'm the chairman of the Panther Party. We got a lot to talk about, but I want to start with a trend that I've dealt with over the last 3 meetings. And I was going to bring it up at the last one, but we had a lot to talk about then. And the trend is every time I speak, out of the last 3 weeks that we've been able to speak at public comment, 4 people have messaged me, unfortunately, because I haven't been able to be there because we're very busy out here in the streets. 4 people have reached out to me and said, hey, I just wanted to thank you for your comments at the Lakewood City Council because you're bringing them a new look instead of them just patting themselves on the back. 4 different people have said that. So it makes me wonder why you guys are patting yourselves on the back so much. You have people in here talking about the library system, and you guys are debating around it. The people have spoken. You have people talking about the Gary Oaks. It was a great speech that y'all did about the farmers market. How many people are going to be going to the farmers market when the soil cannot grow anything because it's contaminated, because we've killed everything that can clean the air? How many people are going to be out there when it's 120 degrees out because we've killed the canopy? The library system, people have talked about it. The internet, you guys did nothing about it. You said you were going to put Wi-Fi out there. You did nothing. You have multiple people sitting in your stage right now, afraid that they're going to be homeless because you are doing nothing to assist them. Send them to your guy, get all the resources, go to the root of the problem and take care of it. That's what you're here for the people. Stop patting yourselves on the back. Stop showing everybody how great Lakewood is. Address the problems that we have as a city. It's okay to say we have a problem, because when you say you have a problem, then you can fix it. So stop patting yourselves on the back and get to work. Justice for Saeed Joaquin. All power to the people. Make sure that the cops don't shoot anybody tonight on the streets, please.
Next, Aviano X. I assume that's your name. Please state your name for the record and residence.
General Ovanio X. My residency is Lakewood. Actually have a couple of things to touch on, and it's been a few weeks since y'all heard from me. So buckle up, it's gonna be a ride. First off, why are we still allowing this racist, bigoted man, Dennis Haugen, who don't even live in the city or the state, to continue to speak? On top of that, speaking about Seattle, why do I care about a city that's 60 miles away when I'm trying to talk about this town right here? Ain't that what y'all always say? Keep it related to the city. If it's not related to the city, why are we discussing it? Why is he being allowed to continue? Why is this timer still ticking with him making these irrational, ignorant statements? He talks about illegal aliens. The illegal aliens here are actually white. Let's keep that 100. This is native land. The people down across the southern border to Mexico are indigenous. You are ignorant. Pick up a book. We should really have him blocked from commentary because it's getting stupid. It really is. I'm tired of it. Nextly, we need to bring back real American history to the schools. Black history that which you are taking out of the schools and staining with bleach. You're trying to tell my child that his ancestors were here as indentured servants that were happy to be here, that hopped upon them boats by their own free will, which is absolute rubbish. I can't believe that I have to untrain my child to these things that you're teaching him. It is ignorance. So why don't you go ahead and take the library, make it a historic museum instead, along with the community center, instead of trying to tear down a historic site that everybody clearly wants to keep. Y'all focused on the wrong things here. Next, you want to tear down the trees, the endangered Gary oak trees, for warehouses to make money, right? Instead, why don't you bring marijuana dispensaries into Lakewood and make so much more money? So much more. That is $1 billion industry, and you are flushing it down the toilet for a warehouse that's going to make you what, a couple $100,000? What a joke. You guys are really not studying. You want to end homelessness. We have a whole section in Woodbrook and in Tillicum that you can build tiny house neighborhoods in. But you guys ain't that smart, are you? You know how much it costs to build one of those? About $5,000. Saves you a whole lot of hell. And Mike Wiley still being allowed to serve on the force. That is an absolute travesty. That man is a murderer, a serial killer. And I only got about 10 seconds left. With that, justice for Saeed Joaquin. All power to the people.
Next, Tishomer Dunlop.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Tim Dunlop, and I'd just like to make a quick comment about the tree canopy goals with the code amendments. So I was on the ad hoc tree committee, and if I remember correctly, we came to the conclusion of having a 40% canopy goal, which seems pretty reasonable. And I recently heard that the commission or the planning, whatever, they decreased it to 30%. And the thing is that the canopy cover in Lakewood is around 26% right now. And the thing is that there is a great margin of error in that measurement because the definition of a tree is, and canopy is quite, there is quite a gray area with that. So, do you count bushes? There are errors in the computation. So really with this 30% canopy goal, there's only a 4% difference between that and the estimated value of the tree canopy cover in Lakewood. And I would guess that that is within the margin of error. So by saying a 30% canopy goal, that is basically the same as saying there's no canopy goal at all. So please have a 40% canopy goal because a 30% canopy goal is no canopy goal. Thank you.
Next is Bunchy Carter.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Very good. As he stated, my name is Bunchy Carter. I am the Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party. I have enjoyed most of what I heard, at least as far as public comment is concerned. I did want to say before I get into what I wanted to say to the lady from the farmer's market, thank you. Because I realized that you know that for the city, the bottom line is the numbers. So you spoke to that. But I could tell by the passion in your speaking that you're more interested in these farmers getting their crops to the people and the people being able to partake in healthy eating despite their financial status. So thank you. I definitely want to thank you for that. And I hope that at some point in the future, perhaps we can get with you and build a partnership so that we can help make that an even stronger connection. Now, before my time runs out, I just want to speak to something that I heard when I first clicked onto the city council meeting. And I gotta tell you, it felt like it was I don't even know. It's almost like I was having a, what do you call it, deja vu? Because I swear that I was just thinking about this and then you started talking about it. You started talking about community policing and the relationship between the police and the community. Well, let me tell you about what I've heard about the relationship between the police and the community of Lakewood. There's a sister who lives in Lakewood who I already had to talk to y'all about because we had to go see about her because a man tried to kidnap her daughter. And instead of going there to take a report and doing what you should have done as police officers protecting the city of Lakewood, you went there and treated her and her 11-year-old daughter like criminals. Well, suffice it to say, maybe that just wasn't enough. because that same individual was having a run-in with their neighbor behind their dog. The neighbor's dog kept coming over there to the house, walking into the house, doing whatever they wanted to do. Now, this particular individual I'm talking about is disabled. She has a spinal injury, just had surgery very recently. She's not able to fend for herself. Yet some much younger, unphysically affected young lady jumped in her face and almost pushed her to the ground. She was dead wrong. And guess what happened when the police showed up? They took the white girl in the house to talk to her privately, came back out, paid no attention to the black woman, and now she has charges and has to go to court for communicating threats to somebody who was physically assaulting her. Now tell me what country that makes sense in, because in the America that you tell me I live in, that's not supposed to happen. All I can tell you is this for certain. There's a reason why people call us, because they're afraid of you. If you're supposed to be a public servant and you're supposed to serve and protect the people, there's no reason they should fear you. Justice for Saeed Joaquin, all power to the people, and trust and believe me, the next time they call us and y'all ain't doing y'all job, it's gonna be even worse than this.
That is the last individual who has raised his or her hand to address the council during the virtual portion of the public comment period. Are there any other individuals out there who wish to address the council during the during the public comment period virtually? Any others? If not, before I close the public comment period, I just want to address a couple of comments. This has been good tonight. I think the interesting interplay of policy issues is important. So we heard tonight about the library system, and we heard about increasing rents and the need for additional housing. And I'll just throw this out there. The issue about the potential de-annexation issue is one that we chatted about at the last study session, and we are going to receive some financial information that will be helpful to us in terms of making a potential decision in that direction. And that financial decision includes both operational monies that are necessary to run a library in an annual period and potentially capital monies for a renovation, whatever ultimately happens with the library. Those are two sums of money that we don't have answers to or ready figures. But what I can tell you is the reason why we don't pat ourselves on the back, we take things somewhat deliberatively, is because they're interplaying policy issues. We know that if we go to the vote of the people, potentially for an increase in property tax, for a capital bond, for instance, it's likely that that could increase taxes for those property owners who own apartment complexes in Lakewood. That may result in increased pressures on rent pricing in Lakewood. It's an interesting push-pull dynamic, so we have to kind of tread a little bit lightly, go forward faithfully, but recognize that there are competing policy issues. And that's why sometimes things don't appear as simplistic as they might, because there's always a yin and the yang to a decision. There's always an outcome for another party. But we do appreciate the feedback, and just know that we are looking at the financial issues to make a policy decision. And that might be impacted by further comment from the committee, because if there's not a lot going on, that isn't helpful. And that may tend to direct a decision in a different direction. So thanks for coming tonight. Okay, I will now declare the public comment period closed. Thanks for coming. Next, we have our consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of July 11th, 2022. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of July 18th, 2022. C, approval of claims vouchers in the amount of $3,295,686.43 for the period of June 24th, 2022 through July 21, 2022. D, approval of payroll checks in the amount of $2,805,351.84 for the period of June 16th, 2022 through July 15th, 2022. E, motion number 2022-55, authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with KPFF in the amount of $69,880 for surveying services related to the Custer Road, Silicon Boulevard to Bridgeport Way Sidewalks project. F, motion number 2022-56, appointing Darwin Peters II to serve on the Lakewood Arts Commission through October 15th, 2025. G, motion number 2022-57, reappointing Carol Ray Dotson and Ken Whitco to serve on the Public Safety Advisory Committee through August 6, 2025. H, items filed in the office of the city clerk. 1, Planning Commission meeting minutes of July 6, 2022. 2, Planning Commission meeting minutes of July 13th, 2022.
Thank you very much. Are there any items which any council member wishes to remove from the consent agenda at this time? Mr. Branstetter.
Item B.
Any others? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented minus item B?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Anderson and seconded by Deputy Mayor Moss that we approve the consent agenda minus item B. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda minus item B has been adopted. We now turn to item B. Mr. Branstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item B is for filing the minutes of our last regular meeting 2 weeks ago. And it was my recollection of the meeting that we had gone ahead and approved the issuance of a conditional certificate of a tax exemption for a small project, mixed use development with 7 houses by American Restoration. And the minutes are worded very strangely that I'm not sure that it says that. The minutes say Councilman Boki moved to decline adoption of resolution 2022-08. It's on page 4 of the minutes. Which is not construct and wasn't exactly how I remember it, and I'm not even sure what that means.
As I recall, we were informed by the city attorney at the time that a motion to decline adoption was the requisite action at the time because it had been brought forward, had been continued to a date certain from the prior meeting. And because it was there, we were informed from a parliamentary procedure standpoint that that was the appropriate motion to decline adoption, which does seem strange, but that's my recollection of what we did.
So and if that's right, it just not was, I was confused, but what is the next step? Or is there a next step? Is that a final action?
Well, it's a great question. I think that if this were to come back for review and approval, it would have to get back on the agenda at some future date. And there would have to be a motion, a second, discussion, and approval. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Whalen, Councilmember Branstetter, Deputy Mayor, council members. So if you recall, the reason that this was moved to be declined is there was a change in ownership, and as a part of that, I can't remember the specifics,
Right.
but the owner was not ready to move forward.
That's right.
And so the owner has asked for time to go back and redo their project proposal and come back to this body with a different request. However, as Assistant City Attorney McCain pointed out at the time, since this had already been introduced to you and had come forward, you needed to take action on it. And of course, the action was to decline it and then allow the property owner to come back with a proposal that both he and of course the city can support. So that's the next steps.
All right, well, thank you. It was just an odd construct to me, and if it's still something that's in the hopper somewhere, but it will come back as a different resolution number.
With apparently a different owner with a different recommendation by the current owner. So thank you for the history reminder there. With that explanation, is there a motion to adopt item B of the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Councilmember Branstetter, seconded by Councilmember Anderson, that we adopt item B of the consent agenda. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Item B of the consent agenda has been adopted. Thank you. And good question, Mr. Branstetter. Thank you for that. We now turn to the regular agenda. Ordinances, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 772, adopting amendments to the Lakewood Comprehensive Plan, including the future land use and zoning maps and Lakewood Municipal Code Title 18A.
Thank you. And for this proposed ordinance, we have our planning manager, Tiffany Spear, who can provide any necessary overview and answer to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. As the mayor just mentioned, this is the evening by which the council is scheduled to take action on the package of 7 amendments for the 2022 Comprehensive Plan docket. I will share a screen for a brief presentation to summarize what's happened to date. Last December, through resolution 2021-14, the council set the docket list. Since then, the development of Planning Commission recommendation has occurred, and that was forwarded to you through their resolution 2022-04 on June 15th. The City Council held a study session on July 11th, a public hearing on July 18th. One person did comment that evening in writing, and that was in support of Amendment 2022-04. So tonight there is a draft ordinance in your materials starting at page 104 that would adopt the amendments to the comprehensive plan, the land use and zoning maps, and municipal code. To really quickly summarize the amendments that are actually included in the document this evening, the first was a rezone of a parcel near St. Clair regarding preservation of Gary Oaks on that parcel. The second is an amendment that's probably the most complicated out of this cycle. It is updating the 2011 Tillicum Neighborhood Plan with a new addendum that identifies the actions that have been taken since it was adopted in relation to its action items. It also looks at the boundaries of the Tillicum Center of Local Importance and looks at rezoning a number of parcels. Number 4 is related to whether or not the city would allow adult family homes to be located within Air Corridor 1 and 2. Amendment number 5 is also related to centers of local importance, but it is for all 8 of those amendments and all 8 of those colis, and I'll come back to that in just a second. Number 6 relates to just updating the comprehensive plan, a number of maps which are outdated. And then number 7 is related to parking regulations, both citywide and within the Lakewood Station District specifically. So coming back up to amendments number 2 and number 5, both refer to the centers of local importance, but they are separate amendments and they're not related to each other. The first is related specifically to the Tillicum coli, and it does include as part of its recommendations an expansion of the boundaries of that center of local importance. And that is to reflect the change in zoning that is also included in that recommended amendment. Number 5, however, is for all of the centers of local importance in the city, and there's 8 of them, and recommending that their name be changed in order to reflect changes in countywide and regional planning policies, where that technical term center of local importance now has a different definition, and those centers within the city need to be called something else. And so the proposal there is to change their name, but not to change the boundaries of any of them. There's a potential amendment. I'll leave that to the council to decide if they want to do anything with it, but I have the language here should anyone want to look at it. Otherwise, Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to answer any questions the council may have.
Certainly, I will ask, I believe Mr. Councilmember Branstetter had a question about one of the items and some of the definitional uses that might need to be altered or amended. Can you walk us through that? And then if need be, Mr. Branstetter or another council member can make that amendment.
I'm sorry, you'd like me to walk through that?
Please.
Okay, sure.
Just bring up the issue.
Yep.
Explain where we may be going with it if we get a motion on the floor to amend.
Certainly. So at the last study session, Councilmember Branstetter did raise a question about language within the amendment 2022-04, which is related to, again, the adult family homes being located in Air Corridors 1 or 2. And the way that analysis happened, both at the Planning Commission level and then at council, was while this runs almost counter to the logic behind the city's military coordination and compatibility and work to make sure that the operations at Joint Base Lewis McChord continue unaffected by Lakewood development, or in fact supported by it. There is also case law that says very specifically that in an area where residential uses are allowed, so are adult family homes. And so the language of the amendment as it was introduced to you says that there will be the allowance of adult family homes within these two zones. And where I think Mr. Brandstetter had a question was it was showing them as an existing use, but not a change to an existing use. And so these three changes here get to where I think Mr. Brandstetter wanted to go, just to say you're allowed to do this as long as it is modifying an existing residential structure, and not that you could have a new residential structure built for purpose of being an adult family home, which is not what the city intended. And then also talking about down in the type 1 group home, taking out that excludes family home phrase. So hopefully that summarized it, but I turn it back to you.
Yep. So in other words, if a residential home within this particular land use category is currently a non-conforming use, that non-conforming use can also serve as an adult family home because of the residential definitions under federal and state law, correct?
Correct, correct.
But if that non-conforming residential home were to be torn down or burned down, God forbid, then there would no longer be an opportunity for that non-conforming use and would have to conform.
I believe so. And it's also, should there be a bare parcel or should there be a tear down and a redevelopment? None of those scenarios would allow either residential construction or an adult family home. It is only in the area where there are existing non-conforming residential uses that would be allowed to be adult family homes within those two zones.
I think Mr. Buer had some illuminating comments. Mr. Buer, did you have anything to add to that?
Great job. No need for me to expound.
Very good. If you didn't hear that, Mr. Buer said you did a great job.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions of Ms. Spear? And did that hopefully help get the issue on the table? Any other questions for Ms. Spear? Okay, do I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 772? Have to get it on second first. It's been moved by Councilmember Brandstetter and seconded by Councilmember Anderson that we adopt ordinance number 772. Is there any further discussion or amendments? Mr. Brandstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm referring to the paper that staff worked with me to prepare. And it's, so I move to amend draft ordinance number 772, section 2, application 2022-04, updating the comprehensive plan and zoning policies and municipal code related to locating adult family homes in Air Corridor 1 and Air Corridor 2 zones. Chapter 18A40, section 18A40-130, part D, and AICUZ land use table as follows. And there's actually three adjustments. It's one, add a third row to the existing uses category beneath the row with the caption stating with alteration, modification of non-conforming existing uses to add a use of adult family homes, alteration or modification of existing residential structure for use as an adult family home, not subject to intensity of use criteria, LMC 18A40-130E1, and subject to the Washington State Building Code as amended. And in APZ1, they would be a primary allowed use, and APZ2, a primary allowed use. Secondly, in the same chapter, in the land use table on the category of residential uses, delete the draft addition of the section that relates to adult family home. And in the same chapter, section D, edit the land uses category under special needs housing for a type 1 group home by deleting the parenthetical comment excludes adult family home.
Ms. Spear, my question to you, based upon Mr. Brandstedter's recitation of his motion to amend, does that language get us where we need to go from your perspective?
I believe it does. The point that Mr. Brandstetter made is a good one a few meetings ago, because the way it had originally been included in the code, there was some room for confusion. And this makes it very clear that what we're doing is saying the non-conforming uses that are there, that are residential, can be converted according to state case law, but not allowing any new construction for those types of uses within the Air Corridor 1 or 2 zones.
Very good. I think let's just clarify, because the city attorney wanted to make sure we had a second to Mr. Brandstedter's motion to amend. I thought we did, but let's double check. Do we have a second on Mr. Brandstedter's motion to amend ordinance 772?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Anderson.
And just for purposes of minutes, if you're talking about the amendment, kind of keep it on the amendment till that's sort of vetted. The minutes will flow better if you take care of the amendment and then move on to whatever the motion ends up being.
Absolutely. Yep. So we're on the amendment right now. Mr. Anderson.
There's a question for Mr. Brandstetter. If the amendment as stated orally is technically I would say, from a scrivener's point of view, inconsistent with the written provision that we've been provided for the amendment. Do you intend for the written?
I intend for the written provision to be the amendment as proposed. In orally stating it, it may have gotten wrapped up around some of the acronyms and code citations. But this has been verified with staff.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment as moved and seconded and on the table? I just have one fly speck in the pepper comment on the first block on the written recited amendment. The last clause after the semicolon, it has the ampersand symbol and subject to the Washington State Building Codes. I rarely ever see an ampersand symbol. It's usually the word spelled out AND. And at the end of that sentence, there's a parenthetical, which would be an ending parenthetical. I don't see a leading parenthetical, so I'd take out the parenthetical as a scrivener's error.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
What do you think, City Attorney? Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor, everything you've mentioned would qualify as scriveners.
Very good. So with those scrivener error corrections, all those in favor of the motion to amend as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to amend ordinance 772 has been adopted. We now turn to ordinance 772 as amended. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of ordinance 772 as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance 772 as amended has been adopted. That takes care of ordinances. Is there any unfinished business to attend to, Mr. Caulfield?
There is none, Mayor.
New business? Any new business?
Not this evening, Mayor.
Great. Then we'll turn to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, council members. Just a few updates. I want to kind of close the loop on our 23rd annual Summerfest event that occurred on July 23rd. First off, I'd like to again recognize our recreation coordinator, Sally Martinez, who was here earlier this evening talking about our farmers market. And she serves as point on our Summerfest event, actually all of our events. And again, I just want to recognize her and her team and all the city departments for pulling together such a wonderful event. The attendance was estimated to be about 25,000 people who showed up. The cost to put on the program is about $150,000 this past year. About 92% of that was funded with grants, including a portion from our lodging tax dollars. However, that didn't include a new additive this year, which was the drone program, the drone show, which was $30,000, and that was funded directly out of the city's general fund. Also, that cost doesn't include the in-kind services that all of our city departments provide, whether it's public works, parks, police, et cetera. There was a total of 185 vendors, including 42 food vendors. Long story short, they all expressed great gratitude and support for the event. They all did very, very well from a financial perspective as well, but more importantly, just providing great fun event to folks. There was 2 stages with live entertainment. The Sister Cities International Festival was they were at the park in the pavilion all day, and again, had some great attendance over there. It was a aerial motocross show, an extreme trampoline show, a kids zone. There was a pop-up skateboard park as well, and there was 102 participants in the car show, so 102 vehicles were out there. And then the grand finale, a final fire dancers, a drone show, and a balloon glow. But again, overall, it was. And there was some other things, actually, some new elements. There was a Museum of Glass had their mobile hot shop out there. There was skimboarding on a 100-foot pool. There was actually axe throwing. There was a Black Hawk helicopter that people could come over and visit with, and want to thank the National Guard for coming out and participating in the event. There was some balloon rides, of course, the drone show. I want to thank Pierce College for the use of their parking lot for our attendees. It was a little bit of a circus, a vaccine clinic. Also, one of the challenges we had at our last event was just parking, ingress and egress. And really want to thank our Public Works Engineering Department, as well as our Parks team and our Police Department for developing a plan. And that seemed to go very, very smooth without any major disruptions. But again, overall, the feedback and the comments was extremely positive. Matter of fact, a lot of the vendors noted that they had some of their best day sales ever across the board. So we look forward to next year's event. Wanted to give an update on the library. Last week, I had a chance to meet with the library executive director. We focused on 3 areas. The first was a temporary library, followed by the council's direction to conduct a de-annexation analysis. And then also the presentation of the Library Advisory Committee's recommendation, how that should go about when they in fact have a recommendation. So right now, the library, the Board of Trustees are looking to negotiate a lease somewhere here in the downtown to provide for a temporary library. And they hope to know here in the very near future, if not in the next 30 days, whether or not they'll be able to do that. As far as the de-annexation analysis, I did ask for their assistance, particularly on the expenditure side of the income statement, on what it would cost to run a standalone library here in the city. And so the library said that they'd be more than willing to help us out with that as we initiate that process here in the next couple of months or so. Also, we did again reaffirm that it would be beneficial for the Library Advisory Committee to present to a joint meeting of the Library Board of Trustees and the Lakewood City Council. And that would most likely, based on the current track of when they're meeting, they had their first meeting in June. They weren't able to meet in July just because of people not being around. So their next meeting is the next week or so in this month. So based on that, we're probably looking at, the early to middle part of November at this point in time. But again, that's based on, where they are right now in their process. Last week, our economic development team, we had a chance to meet with Kite Realty, which bought out RPAI, which is one of the major landowners in our downtown area. Long story short, they are actually very pleased with the way the center is performing overall. Their medium boxes, they reported, are all doing very, very well. The purpose of the meeting was to just get an update on leasing status, development plans, and also potential partnerships for maybe a park and open space. On that latter issue, just want to let you know they are very open to that. They are also very appreciative of the list of, we provided a list of about 40 residential developers that they are currently culling through that they could partner with to bring some kind of residential presence to their properties. They noted that that's not something that they do. That's not their area of expertise. However, they do recognize the value and importance of residential development in these types of centers. And so they are going to be looking at that. They also have some existing vacancies that they are looking to fill here in the near future. They were down in Vegas at the ICSC conference, and so they did report that that went well. So hopefully we'll see some new retailers and some new activity occurring out in the town center here in the near future. Of course, Catapult Amusement just recently opened, and we do expect that place to be very, very busy, particularly on the weekends with young people, whether it's young children and teenagers and like visiting there and taking advantage of other amenities here in our downtown. But again, it was a very good meeting. Also, just wanted to report that I think you're all very familiar with the corner of Gravity Lake Drive and Steilacoom Boulevard. On one corner, there was an old building that recently was recently abated and torn down by the property owner. On the other side, there's a series of other worn out buildings, or actually a lot of buildings just collapsing on themselves. And you may have noticed that some demolition has been initiated there. So that property is now under the control of a local developer, Stephen Mackey. You might be familiar with him. He built the Lake Grove Apartments over on Lake Grove a couple of years ago. And so he is looking to redevelop that 2.93 acres into a 90-unit residential living area. And so that's some good news. We did go out there earlier this morning just so his demolition contractors didn't get carried away and just posted that they are not to touch any of the trees out there. There's actually a couple of oak groves out there that we've spoken with the property owner about. And so we just wanted to stay on top of that. But the proposal is, we just received it late last week. So of course we'll go through the process there. But again, another major corner in the city that is going to see some redevelopment. We also met with representatives from both Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell's offices last week. The purpose of the meeting was first and foremost to communicate our support for the North Clear Zone language that is in the NDAA that our Congresswoman on the House side, that Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland was able to secure, as well as the $2.5 million transportation funding for the last phase of South Tacoma Way between 88th and 80th. Both offices did express their support for that, and they did expect that their bosses would be supportive of that as it made it way over to the Senate or was developed on the Senate side. So depending upon which bill we're talking about there. We also reviewed with them, and I know Mayor Whalen earlier this year and Deputy Mayor Moss, you had actually met with Senator Murray directly, and actually our Congresswoman as well. But we just wanted to reiterate how we had invested the CARES Act monies and how we're currently investing the ARPA funds, and just again, thank them for those resources for our community, and then ask for their continued support of the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, as well as medium-sized set aside for transportation funding. And actually that latter item went a whole lot better, I think, than in the past that it has. Again, we were appreciative of their time. Last week, I reported that our Public Works Department had submitted 2 grant applications to the Pierce County ARPA Sewer and Water Utility Infrastructure Grant Program. I get 3 updates here on this. The first is Habitat for Humanity approached us to have the city sponsor an ARPA grant through this program for their Boat Street project, which we have accommodated. The second is that we learned from the county that apparently they received limited number of applications, actually only 2 from the city of Lakewood. And so they want to give everybody else some more time, and have extended the deadline from this past Friday through August 26th. So then the third update is, well, since they've done that, we're going to go back and we're going to probably submit a 3rd project as it relates to our sewer capital improvement program to see if that's something that the county would be willing to consider, since they've only received 2 so far, actually 3 so far, all from the city of Lakewood. So just wanted to let you know there. Say again, Mayor.
Our odds are good.
That's correct. Yeah, the more we put in, that's right. That's exactly right. So if we can hit 500, that'd be good. Public hearing was held last Wednesday morning on the Western State Master Facility Plan. It was held here in the council chambers. DSHS was well represented and did a great job in communicating, why they needed, what they needed. And they testified accordingly. The city's hearing examiner did not close the hearing, but rather extended it for another 2 weeks, just to allow for additional public comment and feedback to be submitted to him before he makes his decision. So, and that should occur probably in the next couple of months or so, if not sooner. So just probably 5-10 minutes ago, maybe a little bit longer, because I know I've probably been rambling a little bit here, as I always do, right, Mayor? So I'm trying to wrap it up. So you just finished your comp plan amendment process for 2022. Well, guess what? It's August 1st. We just kicked off the 2023 comp plan amendment cycle. And so over the next 31 days for the month of August is an opportunity for private property owners to submit for the 2023 comp plan amendment process. And we'll be before this body. It looks like in November, after it makes its way through the Planning Commission, in terms of what that full docket will look like, and also allow, of course, for this body to provide feedback and input on what you'd like to see considered as part of the 23 comp plan amendment process. And then just in closing, 2 items. One, we placed, the city clerk placed in front of you this evening an outline of the National Night Out events, the schedule of events for tomorrow. And I know several of you have been lined up with a police officer and or fire, I believe it's all police officers. And then also later in the week, or next week rather, on the 9th, Summer Nights at the Pavilion concerts. So there'll be Good Company Swing. So from 6:30 to 8. And then a week from Saturday on the 13th of August from 4 to 8:30 will be the third of 4 Saturday street festivals, which the theme will be Jazz Nights, accompanied by a car show. So with that, Mayor, that's my report.
Any questions of Mr. Caulfield, Mr. Anderson, and then Mr. Brandstetter?
Thank you. Mr. Caulfield, you had indicated that the new owner of the town center had some interest in what I would refer to as a lineal park or green space around the edges, however you want to put it. Was there any indication of the scope or location of that in the discussion?
Yes, council member. So actually their focus, they are interested in, they like the idea of a linear greenscape and this and that, but they're also keenly interested in actually a large open space like a park, which would be in the vicinity of where Gottschalk's was, kind of a central area that kind of brings together the existing restaurant. They're hoping maybe to bring more restaurants into that area. It would also complement what's going on with the theater, as well as catapult and things along those lines. So not just linear, but also an actual green space, an actual park as well. As far as what the scope and design of that would be, we were with them about an hour and a half. So there's more to come on that. We did outline that this body had allocated some funding to do some conceptual and even some pre-design work on that, and they appreciated that as well.
Did the original developers of Villa Plaza leave us with an as-built as to where the underground creek is headed?
So, Councilmember Anderson, so that has come up, and generally speaking, we do know where it's at. I don't know if we actually, I know someplace there is some documents that have that, but generally speaking, our staff, particularly Mr. Buer, is aware of what flows around the town center area. It's actually more around the back of this building than it is actually under the Gottschalk's building. But the short answer is yes, council member.
Thank you.
Mr. Brandstetter.
Yeah, Mr. Caulfield, I just had a question to clarify the Affordable Housing Evaluation Committee funding recommendations. Those are just recommendations. You know what the timeline of the approval process for any of those funding sources is?
Councilmember Branstad, we don't have that information. That's making its way through Pierce County at this point in time. But as soon as we know something on that, we will be sure to communicate it to you.
Okay, and the LASA item is the only Lakewood related item on that list?
Habitat for Humanity as well, Councilmember Branstad.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Boki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know if this is an appropriate venue when we talk about the Western State Plan. Now that it's moved forward to the hearing examiner, I know the city staff took a long look at it. Have the city's concerns been met by the current plan?
Councilmember Boki, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a couple of quick questions. So on the Summerfest outcome and sort of after action review, obviously great work. The public loved it. I understand the cost was roughly 150 grand plus the extra drone show of 30, about 180 or so. And my question is, we've talked about 85% cost recovery on parks and park stuff. We never really talked about it in context of Summerfest. Is that something that we didn't hit? Should we try to hit next year? Are vendors paying any sort of fee? They're making record revenues. Is that something we want to think about? Or are we okay with that?
Actually, Mayor, in summary, I would say that this from a programmatic standpoint does extremely well. And this, in the past, I would have to go back and I don't even know if we have the numbers. It would probably take some time, but I can tell you that this recovery of, 92% on our direct costs is a huge increase from where we were just 3 or 4 years ago.
Great.
So it's gotten better. And Ms. Martinez and her team, because of the relationships they have with, our community partners, whether they're businesses or nonprofits, or whether they're cutting us a check or getting in kind, continues to grow each and every year. And it's built upon the success of the event itself. I would caution against trying to target some kind of a recovery against that, because quite frankly, right now, we're already exceeding it.
Right. I just wanted to kind of point that out because we set a goal, but we've exceeded it actually.
Yeah. And actually, Mayor, just a point of clarification, within our parks program, our recovery ratio is 45%.
Oh.
It's 85%. It's 85% for development services.
Development services,
It's
right. Okay.
45% for our recreation and overall park programs.
Got it. One other question on dealing with the library. Appreciate the update. I'm obviously a little concerned by commentary of one of the members on the subcommittee that things aren't going as copacetically as they perhaps should be. And I thought there was some comment or recommendation about increasing the contract for the consultant by another $21,000 to facilitate further final discussions and interaction with the council.
So Mayor Whalen, that actually pertains to your tree preservation code.
Not the library folks at all.
No, Mayor.
So no extra cost for those guys to
We don't,
facilitate that.
not on
Okay.
our end. No, Mayor. No, the tree preservation code at your next regular meeting, we're going to be asking for an amendment to that contract, given the number of meetings that both the planning commission and then an extra meeting or two that your ad hoc committee had, plus the anticipated number of meetings this body is expected to occur, which was above and beyond what was originally projected.
We may need some additional time with the other committee, but I was going to say we shouldn't have to pay anything else for it because the taxpayers aren't getting much bang for their taxpayer buck right now for the last 6 to 8 months. So there's a lot of money hanging out there. Okay, that's all I have for my questions. We'll turn to city council comments. Mr. Boki. None for Mr. Boki. Mr. Branstetter.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. I'd just like to bring up an old issue that I don't think there's probably a lot of disagreement on, but I'd like to try to re-energize, and that's the potential for taking over the Washington Fish and Wildlife boat ramp at the end of Tillicum. I understand that the lease has been renewed, but Fish and Wildlife really wasn't ever enthused about taking care of that because they don't get any budget. It's more, the roadblock has really been at the Washington Military Department, National Guard. Probably 10 years ago, first approached that subject. I personally have been in 2 or 3 meetings with the TAG. never outright rejected, although annexing as a whole has been essentially rejected. If we annexed a portion of Camp Murray instead of their operational part that doesn't have any utility tax involved, if we took it over under a long-term lease or ownership, we could provide a particularly valuable asset to the people of Lakewood and surrounding areas, which is lake access. There was quite a bit of social media chatter in the last couple of weeks about that site not meant to be a park being used as a park. The conflict, I guess, between people who are using it as a park and fishing and people launching boats, and the fact that it's totally unimproved, it's gravel, bathrooms bad, garbage is everywhere, who's in charge. So we could do so much more with policing, garbage, restrooms, amenities, make it a park with a boat launch. I went and looked this last weekend. It was crowded. It was a lot more crowded than even surprisingly than Harry Todd was. I think we need to try to come up with a plan, and that might be a three-pronged plan, a push from the city and the council, getting our legislators involved and see who our legislators are after the election, and seeking out community activists who are in favor of it. So making some noise, and it wouldn't cost the state anything. Actually take any maintenance and operations they do off their hands, and it wouldn't impede Washington Fish and Wildlife's access to use it to stock kokanee or whatever they do from their own operations. So I'd like to see us adopt that as a more formally as an initiative, and devote some time and effort to rallying the community.
Agreed. I think that makes good sense. Councilmember Farmer, from your lakeside location.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Friday, I will be attending the monthly South Sound Housing Affordability Partners Executive Board meeting, where we will have a number of presentations and discussions, one of which will be a presentation by Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland regarding her work with the Department of Defense to, I've got a cold and it's messing with my head. Department of Defense to address housing planning for the base. And at the risk of not having all of the facts in front of me, and I see that Mr. Busich isn't on the line, I wanted to address some of the comments tonight and succeeding public comments on the Phillips Road sidewalk project. The first, I wanted to note that we received a grant for I believe it was $300,000 from CDBG funds, and I can't, y'all are too far away. I can't see if Mr. City Manager is.
He's got a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay. $300,000, which the last number I could find in my notes was that it was estimated at about $452,000 total for that project. But
the thumbs up, yes.
Very good. So the bulk of that entire project was paid for by grant funds. And I have to agree with the commenters who are like, why in the world did you put the sidewalk on the west side of the road where you have to take out the trees when you can't put it on the other side where there's all this space? It doesn't make any sense if you just look at it from a layperson's perspective. Well, of course, the funds come with strings attached because the CDBG funds need to be spent within a census tract, a low-income census tract. And that boundary is on the west side of Phillips Road, not on the side next to the game farm. So we were stuck. City was stuck. We had to put it on that side. One of the benefits of putting it on the side is that it does add that missing spot. There are sidewalks near the school. There are now sidewalks on Onyx, but there was a big chunk without sidewalks. I live in that area. People are distracted. I will say this until the cows come home. They are not paying attention, particularly when you're driving into Oak Brook. They cut that corner every single time on the right-hand side of the road, the east side of the road. And so it's dangerous. The kids don't typically walk on that side. If they do, they're walking in the grass or they're walking in the game farm itself. And when it's raining, when it's muddy, it's just the sides of the road. It's crazy. Kids are walking. Yes, kids are walking. I've lived there 19 years in September. Kids use that area and they will use it more now that the sidewalks are built. We saw this when it happened, when the sidewalks went in on Onyx. Suddenly more people were using them because you weren't in fear for your life with traffic and being so close to cars. So I'm confident it'll be used. I'm proud of the work we're doing there. I am sad that we had to take out the trees. And another piece of information I don't have with me is exactly what mitigation we're doing. I believe some money went into a mitigation fund where we're going to be doing some mitigation, maybe.
The manager will check on that.
Excellent.
Typically, that mitigation money isn't necessarily used for existing road projects because that's usually part of the bidding process to replace some landscaping, but he'll check.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. And next, Deputy Mayor Moss. She's good. I have some comments though. I got a few. So the first comment, again, following up a little bit on the library public comment tonight, I have to admit I'm concerned about the progress. I'm hopeful that the subcommittee will gain the ear of those folks who are hopefully working on the public's behalf and coming up with good solutions. What I know from what I hear is that the citizens are not going to have even a temporary solution until 2023. That makes no sense to me, except for the little roving book van or whatever they've got, which, you know, I understand it. But if we're looking at 39 cents per thousand, and I think we had an estimate of the financial monies flowing from Lakewood taxpayers to the library district is roughly $3 million a year, roughly. And my little calculator, 3 million divided by 12 months, $250,000 a month. It's my impression that the existing library in Lakewood is nowhere near staffed its previous operating levels. And we have received information and we've made some consensus nod to the city manager to move forward with some financial analysis to see if the annexation makes any sense for the taxpayers. We understand our staff is busy and we have other projects and tasks to do. What I'd like to propose is that we encourage the library system to devote some of the funds that they're not using to operate an open library in Lakewood and help add on or amend the existing contract with Burke to do that financial analysis. They owe it to the taxpayers to do it. They've got the funds from monies they're not utilizing in Lakewood to do it, and I suggest they do it. So I don't know where we take that from here, but that would be my recommendation, that we direct the manager to politely ask if they would be willing to take that task on at their expense. Any comments, Mr. Brandstetter?
Yeah, well, I would say that the library district didn't do themselves any favors in community relations with their annual report, which went to the mail to everyone. Didn't really mention the problems with the Lakewood Library, but said that they're aggressively moving forward with the plans to raise the money to build a new library in Sumner. I thought it's strange that they were holding an executive session to discuss renting space to do that. I wasn't, to be able to go and do that. I appreciate the lady that came and spoke to us with, she sounded somewhere between frustrated and uncertain as to what's going to happen.
Maybe we can give them a nod. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of some type of resolution asking from council, because it would be an unusual move for one elected body asking another public body to take action. So to be more serious. But I'd include in that, or in the alternative, to provide tax rebate to the people who live in Lakewood.
Agreed. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, it's a bad situation in how slowly things are moving. And now we hear it won't be till 2023 they open even a temporary location.
It's not acceptable.
It is not acceptable, and it just, I'm not sure who's in charge. I mean, it just doesn't seem like anybody there is able to. I don't know why we're having to try to explain to them that this is a big deal, and so the 5-member board, which includes a resident of Lakewood on it, and the CEO, and I realize she's new. I just am not understanding why our sense of urgency is not translating to them. And because I'm not understanding that there's a sense of urgency. You know, an apology, maybe they should start with an apology, but after that, I'd like a plan of action, and I'd like it soon.
Well, I think that getting consulting contracts, we don't put this burden of a financial analysis on our city staff. It's not fair to do that. So we need to figure out a way to politely ask them to fund it, a third party, because it's to their benefit too, and ours. And they've got, in my humble opinion, the extra resources because they're not providing any services. I have no idea. It's a great question. Yeah, I don't know what the county council is doing on it. I don't know if you heard anything at the county level, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Boki, nothing like that.
I haven't heard anything. I mean, I guess we could request, I don't know what the, I don't know. I mean, we could request that they not approve any new members on the board or something like that.
It's just getting to the point where it's not good. It's not acceptable. We're not getting any service and we're not getting any tax rebate. We're getting feedback from people on the committee that are questioning the viability and value of the outcome of the committee. Not good.
Why hasn't the executive director come and given us her plan?
I think she probably needs to.
And when will that occur? I mean, will it next week, in the next week or two, where she actually presents a plan that her board has agreed upon?
Well, I think we can let Mr. Caulfield follow up. He's heard probably plenty from us. I think he understands what we're looking for. Hopefully. Do you need further consensus, or do you got it? Thumbs up? Okay. So I would ask that we have consensus to direct the city manager to meet with the executive director of the Pierce County Library System in Lakewood, or here for Lakewood, and direct that they expedite contracting with a third-party service skilled at doing this financial analysis to provide specific information to the city of Lakewood and its resident taxpayers, as well as to the library board itself, what the viability from a financial standpoint would be on both operating and capital. To, when it's ultimately determined what the plan is for the library, if there's still going to be a capital ask of the taxpayers, whether it's renovation of the Tinsler in its existing location or a move of the library to a future location, there's going to be a capital ask of the vote of the people. It would be good to get some financial analysis done. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I think they need to be on the road to doing it. And I bet they could get it done sooner than opening a temporary location in Lakewood by 2023. Is there any other thought on that? Do we have consensus? to direct the manager on that?
Yeah, and I think we do, but I think we also need to understand what their timeline is, and we need the executive director here to speak to us as a body rather than ignore us. And then at some point in time, I guess we're going to have to find out what do you do when a special purpose district doesn't want to provide service to you.
Then we go through the de-annexation process potentially. Mr. Caulfield.
I mean, I would urge the council to direct the city manager to be very direct and very blunt, and with the executive director, that the actions to date of the library board and the management of the Pierce County Library System have not, to put it mildly, not been adequate and are absolutely unacceptable. And if they're not going to come up with a timeline post haste, what other individuals do we need in those positions to make sure something gets done?
Right. Even the validity of the Wi-Fi issue, whether true or not, it would be nice to know that if there was going to be Wi-Fi available to those in the outside of the building, that would be nice to know it's actually working. Any other discussion from my fellow council members? Am I right? So did you get enough direction, sir, on that? Great. Okay, other couple quick comments. Samoan Cultural Day, I attended at the invitation of the Asia Pacific Cultural Center. It was fantastic, held at McGavick Center. Tons of people here on Friday evening. Another wonderful opportunity to display many good things we have in Lakewood, including the cultural diversity that we celebrate. It was a great evening, and Lua Pritchard did yeoman's work along with many others here in Lakewood. National Night Out, I'll be attending that tomorrow with Lieutenant Westby. And then finally, kind of commenting on Deputy or former Mayor, Councilmember Anderson's comments about the boat launch. It is indicative of the need for additional opportunities for people to access the public waters here in Lakewood. And I can tell you, as a guy who lives next to or very close to Edgewater Park, it was slammed with people all weekend long. I mean, the crowds down there, the traffic was crazy. The people just trying to do anything they could to get in the water. You know, we had good appearances by our Lakewood Police Department folks who were out there on their jet skis in the water, which is fantastic. But what was really kind of sad was the complete brambled perimeter of that park where people were just trying to scramble to get access. And the place needs work. I know it's on our legacy plan. I know we're going to get to it hopefully with some design by next year, but it'll be a welcome relief for a lot of people to get going on that project sooner than later. There's a huge need and a desire to have access. And there were so many people out there with young kids all over the place in the roadway, just trying to get into the water to cool themselves down. Yeah, it's a big need. So whether it's out at the boat launch over by on the other side over by Camp Murray or Edgewater Park or elsewhere, we've done great work in Harry Todd. We've done great work in American Lake Park. We need to work on Edgewater Park. It just looked like a blackberry bramble infested patch of too short grass that no one could get to the water much to use. You know, it's unfortunate. So anyway, I'll stop with my comments before the heat gets hotter in here. Okay. The council will now recess into executive session for approximately 10 minutes pursuant to RCW 4230-110 sub 1 sub I to discuss with legal counsel representing the city on certain litigated matters. The council may take action following the executive session, and I will announce that if and when we come back and reassemble on the dais here. And at this point, we are in recess. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are reconvening after a short recess into our executive session where we discussed the litigated matter. And now I ask for a motion to authorize
Mr. Mayor?
settlement. Mr. Anderson.
I move that we authorize settlement of Arthur West versus City of Lakewood, Pierce County Superior Court case number 20-2-08927-9 in amount not to exceed $25,000 as recommended by the city of attorney.
Do I have a second? And moved by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Moss, that we authorize settlement of the referenced case in an amount not to exceed $25,000. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion in resolving this Public Records Act matter? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We have authorized the settlement as indicated. There being no further discussion, we are adjourned.